Jonathan Turley joins us now as well. And sir, welcome to our coverage. Fox News contributor, constitutional law attorney. Just one more thing on the politics of this. What Judge Juan allowed Trump to do in the middle of this election was to give him a platform a couple times a day. The cameras are parked outside the courtroom looking down the hallway, and Trump took advantage of it every time he walked in and walked out. And every cable outlet covered it. All that stuff was distributed on social media. You can crack on Biden for running a lackluster campaign at the time, but, Trump took the stage and took advantage of that moment. Jonathan, does this case come back when he leaves the White House in 2029?
Well, it can. It's a sort of a curious position to put the president in. Some might even view it as passive aggressive, because you leave this dangling sort of Damocles over his head. And so his critics will say he's awaiting sentencing. And you make it more difficult to appeal some of these issues. Keep in mind that the sentencing issue aside, and I doubt that the judge would have sentenced him to jail time, this case has layers, in my view, of reversible error. I think that the judge did a horrible job in this trial. He ruled regularly and consistently against Trump, and in some cases, I think that he did commit reversible errors. So freezing this in amber is not going to be necessarily good news for the Trump campaign. I think they were eager to appeal this, to get a final decision and to at least appeal aspects of this. So there's going to be some maneuvering going on as to what can be still reviewed. In terms of leaving a case suspended for 4 years, it's just a very odd way of addressing this. The sentencing only created a conflict with the president's presidential duties if the judge sends limitations upon the president. I mean, he could have simply said, I'm not going to impose jail time or home confinement. He could even say that being president is equivalent to community service. So there's a lot of ways that he could have handled this. So I think as we play this out a bit, we're going to have to see what the Trump lawyers do. I don't know if they will necessarily welcome the idea that they're just going to keep this thing sort of as a zombie case for 4 years.
Professor, stand by, and we're going to get to this whole issue that Andy raised about this political quid pro quo, which would be the ultimate, right?
That's right.
The ultimate pinch me moment here. So stand by for that. We got more.
And Kerri Urbahn, you were in the courtroom for all of this that happened in New York City. Tell us what you think about the decision to delay.
I think the Trump lawyers had to expect this to some extent because, they did file just a few days ago saying that because Donald Trump is now president-elect, it raises all kinds of new constitutional questions that the court has to consider as far as both, on one hand, the immunity issue from the Supreme Court, but also sentencing, given that he obviously, if he were to be sentenced to anything, wouldn't be able to execute that sentence because he will be at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. But a couple thoughts come to mind. One, I've been wondering what Governor Hochul is thinking. She has the power to pardon him in this. And it could be an interesting decision on her end. I've wondered if Donald Trump is having, and his people are having conversations with her right now, because as we know, the state of New York, it's a bit of a mess as far as how they run law enforcement there. So I've wondered about that. But, look, in the big picture here, the thing that has always tremendously bothered me about this case is that I think a huge point of this was for the Democrats to get the talking point convicted felon. And the reason and the way they were able to make him a convicted felon was to say that he committed these misdemeanors. He was covering up some underlying crime. And the real travesty in all of this is that we and he still don't know what those underlying crimes are because we weren't told. So Donald Trump became the so-called convicted felon, and we still don't even know why or how exactly.
Right, Kerri, you were in the court.
I'm sure they're thinking about this.
You came on the air repeatedly. You were taken back by the absurdity of the case itself, and
right.
Obviously your opinion has not changed.
No, it hasn't changed at all. I still think it's a disgrace, and I wonder what this means as far as the delay and what will play out in the coming weeks, especially with the politicking, so to speak, between Donald Trump and maybe the leaders